Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Diane Mitchell, and I'm the Technical Advisor for Hair and Beauty. I'm joined today by Alison Whittle. Alison, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everybody. My name's Alison Whittle. I'm the Post-16 Technical Advisor. I'm supporting Diane today with Key Stage 4 and any questions that may need answering at the end of the webinar.
So as I'm going through the presentation, please ask questions as you're going along, and we will stop at key times throughout the presentation to answer your questions. So today we're doing a presentation on Key Stage 4, the Level 2 Technical Award in Hair and Beauty Studies. So on the agenda today, we're going to be doing a quick introduction to the Level 2 Technical Award in Hair and Beauty Studies. We're going to go through some of the key generic support resources we've got out there to support you with delivering to your learners to get the best possible achievement. We're then going to go through the key dates for 2017-18 academic year, and then today we're really going to concentrate on the externally set and externally marked element, and we will go into the synoptic assessment as well, but we really want to concentrate on the new exam guides around preparing your learners for that knowledge tests. We will be looking at the new assessment objectives and the bands, but we're really pleased to announce that our principal moderator, Alison Atkinson, will be doing a webinar early in sort of January, February time to go through best practice of marking against assessment objectives for the Synoptic Practical Assignment. Okay, so we now have our Level 2 Technical Award in Hair and Beauty Studies. It's 120 guided learning hours, which maps to 1 GCSE. We have 3 units. Unit 201, Exploring the World of Hair and Beauty. Unit 202, the Science of Hair and Beauty, and Unit 203, Design in the Hair and Beauty Sector. Unit 203 is very much like the Create an Image unit, where we get the learners to actually present an image and actually do hands-on hair and beauty skills. So, support resources we have you accessed all of these? What we've done at City and Guilds is we've done some key documents for you to be able to support you in this journey. At the beginning of the academic year, we sent out to you a technical welcome pack, which had all the information about the exam guides, exam timetables, learning and teaching and learning assessment guides, and a guide on moderation. These guides have been updated this year to make things slightly clearer for centres, and we have made a few adjustments in a few areas, getting feedback from you as centres. We then sent out an autumn newsletter with key dates around when you need to be registering your learners and when you need to be thinking about booking that end knowledge test and that end practical synoptic assignment. What I've done for here is when you get this presentation, each of these is a hyperlink to the particular document that I'm going to be talking about. I know for City and Guilds website it's not always the easiest to navigate through, so I've given you key links that takes you to these documents. So our marking and moderation guide, as I say, has been updated this year. The minimum sample size that we have for our technicals now is 12 learners. So if you have up to 100 learners, we will sample 12 of those learners. Obviously, with Key Stage 4, it is a desk-based moderation activity. So when the window closes on the 18th of May, you have to upload your evidence across the sample size, and the sample size will be 12, and from those 12 we'll want to see the top learner with the very, very top marks, the learner with the very, very bottom marks, and then a range of different learners in between across different markers that are marking within your centre. We've got our exams timetable. You should now know when your dated entry exams are for your learners. One hint that I would probably say to you from lessons learnt last year is please let your learners know that there's a resit opportunity. Let them know there's 2 tests, because in some cases, and this wasn't at Key Stage 4 but it was at Key Stage 5 last year, that some learners were so sure of themselves of passing the first attempt that they actually booked a holiday on the second attempt. What you need to be aware of also is if your learners sit the knowledge test in the spring series and they pass or they get a merit, they could decide to resit again in the summer series to improve their grade. And like GCSEs, the best grade would count. We've also got a teaching and learning assessment guide. This is a guide that we've written with an Ofsted inspector to really support you with the journey to support your learners for endpoint assessment. Things like your command verbs, how to prepare your learners for that knowledge test, how to prepare your learners for that practical test. Preparation, have you got all your resources ready? We have got a good Key Stage 4 guide that talks you through the qualification. We also have the qualification handbook. Your qualification handbook is your teaching syllabus. It has the nuts and bolts of everything you need to deliver to that learner across the depth and breadth of all the units. Also, we have a qualification report on our website under 3038. This qualification report goes into details about how all learners performed last year. Our principal moderator and our chief examiner has given you hints and tips around where learners did well and where learners struggled last year. So if you haven't read that, please make sure you have a look and look at the qualification report. You can find it under Documents, Level 2, Assessment. We've then got all of the qualification reports in there. You've got sample synoptic assignments in there, but you've also got this year's sample, this year's synoptic assessment in there as well. We've got for frequently asked questions, and as I say, we've now got some sample question papers and mark schemes. I'm going to hand over to Alison now to go through the next few slides.
Hi everyone, just to give some hints and tips for Key Stage 4 delivery. Obviously the first one is to read all of the resource documents and guides. However, Key Stage 4, as you know, can be delivered over a 1, a 2 or a 3-year programme, which gives quite a lot of flexibility within your delivery and your curriculum hours. So what I've done is really sort of given some visuals on the next couple of slides as what a 1 or a 2-year delivery sort of programme could look like for you. So the delivery of the assessment components really is really down to you in what order you teach them. And there is no set style because it follows a syllabus programme rather than unitised. You can split the exam and synoptic across different academic years, dependent on the model you choose and the hours that you have your learners. I think what is important is that if you are delivering over more than a 1-year programme, you just need to remember to book your learners onto the synoptic and the knowledge test in the correct year that the learners will be sitting those exams. So on the next slide, looking at how you can help plan your assessments there. So each technical award has 1 theory exam and 1 synoptic assignment. And as we said before, you can choose a 1, 2 or a 3-year delivery pattern in year 9, 10 and 11. What is important to remember that there are 2 opportunities in each academic year for learners to sit the theory exam and only 1 12-week window in the spring and summer term when learners can undertake the assessment. So the theory exam can be taken in the spring or the summer, and a spring theory exam sitting allows you to take a resit or a retake, or even an exam to upgrade the original sort of grade that the student has achieved. and that opportunity is in the summer term if required. What is important to remember that the Synoptic Assessment has to be completed in the 12-week window between February and May. And there are no Synoptic resit opportunities for the Synoptic Assignment in the same academic year. So I'm just going to talk you through a sample of a one-year programme. So, you know, obviously your dates are really set into that programme. So you begin your academic term in September. You would teach all of the delivery, the syllabus, right the way through till January. You would enter all of your learners for your first exam series, which is in the exam timetable. It's either February or March. They would then sit that exam. The marks would be submitted to City and Guilds. You would get the results in May, and that allows for a second opportunity for a resit of the knowledge or the theory exam in the May series to be released in June for you. In the Synoptic Assessment, that is going to be released in the autumn term for you. That will be sometime between September and October. So you will teach all of the assessment required for the Synoptic Assessment. You'll have a 12-week window to submit your marks between February and the closing date, which I think is the 18th of May. Your results will then be released to you for the August. So you'll have all of your results with 1 year. So pretty straightforward for the first year. If you move on to the second year, that obviously opens up some flexibility to you. So we've just looked at a possibility, a possible 2-year delivery model. So on year 1, I would really look at focusing on the delivery of the syllabus in year 1. And I would possibly enter my learners for the June exam window in year 1. That means you've got something to aim for throughout the academic year, along with teaching all of the practical skills. By the end of August that year, you will know which of your learners have achieved that knowledge or theory exam from the May or June series. That means when you start your second academic year, you will carry on teaching to delivery the syllabus. You will then have an opportunity to enter your learners who you may want to upgrade their marks or who haven't yet achieved on the first sitting. You can then enter them for the February and March exam series. That way you will still get your results from that series in June. You can also have a look at the Synoptic Assessment. So I would recommend that you possibly deliver that within the second year, because they have acquired all the practical skills in the first year. They would then sit the Synoptic Assessment, released to you in September. You would enter the marks in February to May, and you would still get your results in June. What this means is that all of your learners will have completed their whole qualification by the 18th of May. That then means that if centres have to release learners or intervention for other subjects, it means that you will be able to release your learners early, knowing that they've achieved both. However, you'll note there's 3 exam dates within this 2-year. So you don't have to enter your less able students for the May and June in the first year. You could quite easily wait until the February and March in the second year to have the knowledge test, and then you'll still have the 1 resit in the May and June. So it's really down to how you would grade your learners and how you think which learners are going to be ready for that exam. So hopefully that's given you a good idea. And if we look, we haven't got a visual for a 3-year programme, but what I would recommend is that you can either use year 1 in year 9 and year 2 in year 10, or you may want to really just engage with your learners and have them learning practical skills in year 9 and not enter any of your learners until year 10 or 11. It opens up a significant flexibility to your programme over a 3-year series, but happy to take any questions on the end.
The benefits of doing it over a 3-year period is that you can sit the Synoptic in the second year when they've got those practical skills, but then you've still got the 3rd year for a resit opportunity just in case they don't pass the Synoptic Assessment in year 2. Okay, so I'm going to go through now some of the command verbs. Now, reading back on the qualification report that's been done by the Chief Examiner, lessons learnt from last year that our learners actually did really well with the recall type of command verbs. And though that they are the command verbs like state, list, label, identify, our learners did really well with them. The command verbs they didn't do quite so well up is where they've got to go into, you know, go in and describe or discuss or explain. They have to tell us why. And what lots of learners did is they gave us a bullet point response, but they didn't go into the nuts and bolts of why. So I think that's what lessons learned from last year, is that we've got to start to focus our preparation with our learners and get them to understand what do we mean by explain, what do we mean by discuss, what do we mean by describe. But I'm going to go through some examples in a moment for you. So the key dates for 2017/18. The booking window is now opened. You should have now registered all of your learners by the end of October if you are going to be sitting any exams in this academic year. So by the 22nd of December, you need to let us know if you want your learners to do a paper-based externally set and externally marked exam, or if you want them to do it online. Now, it doesn't matter if it's online or paper-based, the exam is exactly the same. It's short answer questions with some stretch and challenge questions in there as well. You should be really thinking about what is best for each individual learner. And it's really, you've got to think about those learners' capabilities. You have to think about those learners' writing skills. In some cases, last year, our markers found it very difficult to read some of the learners' handwriting. So if you have got a learner that's got very, very poor handwriting skills, I would probably recommend to do it online. The disadvantages with doing it online is if your learner has got slow typing skills, then it might take them longer to type a word than it does write a word, which could mean that they could run out of time. Also, we had some situations last year where we had lots of learners in a computer suite doing the knowledge test at exactly the same time, and the noise of people typing was quite distracting for some learners. So you've really got to think carefully about what is right for each learner. As a centre, you can have a mixture of both. It doesn't matter. Your exams department will just book each individual learner, and they would put the correct code for if they want a paper-based or an online test. Centres only have to book the assessments in the window if the learners are going to take the theory exam in March next year. If your learners are doing it over a 2 or 3 year period and you don't want them to sit in March next year, you don't have to book them just yet. The synoptic window opens on the 5th of February. You have a 12-week window if you're going to carry out the synoptic assignment this year to get your learners through that synoptic assignment. You decide when they are ready to do it. You have that 12-week window to stretch your learners out with different capabilities to put them in for that practical synoptic when you feel they're capable. Please note, if you want to enter your learners for the June 2018 theory exam, you'll need to book this between the 1st of March and the 27th of April. If your learners are sitting the knowledge test on March 2018 for their first attempt, you will get their results through on the 23rd of April. If you have any learners that want to improve their grade, or if they do not pass, you only have 1 week to be able to rebook them in for the summer series test. If you're planning to have the theory exam in 2018-19, then you don't need to book this academic year. And the same if you are not going to do the practical synoptic assessment this year, you don't need to worry about booking it this academic year. So just to recap, what the technical wall components are. We've got two components. You've got your Synoptic Practical Assignment, which is externally set, internally marked by you and standardised, and externally moderated by City and Guilds. The Synoptic Practical Assignment contributes to 60% of the overall grade, and you have your 12-week window to be able to put your learners in when you feel they are ready. There is not a resit in the same academic year. If a learner didn't achieve, then that window wouldn't open again until the following February. For the external assessment, the theory exam, again it's externally set and externally marked by City and Guilds. It contributes to 40% of the overall grade, but you do have a resit opportunity in the same academic year. But don't forget, for both, we only have one resit opportunity. If they fail either on the resit opportunity, they fail the qualification. So, external assessment dates. We know now that the knowledge test is going to be 2 hours long. Just again, a hint and tip from something we happened last year is, again, whoever's invigilating this exam, please make sure those learners stay in that exam for the full duration of it. In some cases last year, learners left when they felt that they had finished the exam, and in some cases it was after an hour, and no surprises there, the learners didn't achieve. But also it disrupted those learners coming out of the exam. So the first spring series is going to be on the 21st of March, 9:30 to 11:30. Very similar to a GCSE, it's a dated entry exam. The resit opportunity, or it could be the first opportunity, is on the 19th of June, depending on your delivery model, and it's exactly the same time, 9:30 to 11:30. Say you can choose paper or online versions. If you want to do an online version, Evolve, the code your exams department would use is 002. If you want a paper-based version, the code you would use is 502. The externally set and externally marked knowledge paper will cover the critical knowledge. There will be 10 to 12 short answer questions which test the breadth and depth, and there will be one extended response question. This contributes to 40% of the overall grade and is graded distinction, merit, pass or fail, and we have one opportunity for a resit. Now, on the exam guide, it goes into a little bit more detail for you about how the exam is going to be structured. And this is really important to be able to fully prepare your learners for the end knowledge test. So we have different types of questions. We have recollection of knowledge, which is recall, which is more based around your list, your state, your label, identify, type, command verbs. Then we have our understanding of concepts and theories, and this is based more around your describe, explain, justify, compare command verbs, where they have to go into slightly more detail. And we'll then have a case study stretch and challenge question, which is integrated application of knowledge and understanding across all units. So the way this is built up, it tells us that those recall knowledge type questions, which is your state, list, identify, are weighted at around about 20%. Those questions where they have to go into a little bit more explanation, or using command verbs such as describe and explain, is weighted at 50%. And then your stretch and challenge question around your case study approach is weighted at 30%. That just restates it slightly clearer for you. So, the way the exam is going to be laid out, it's going to cover across the 3 units, but each one is going to be weighted slightly differently. So we're going to have, on Unit 201, it will be on the understanding the key features of the hair and beauty sector and understand the development of the hair and beauty sector. There's going to be 8 marks allocated to this outcome, and it's going to be 13% of the overall test. It's predominantly, the knowledge test is going to be on Unit 202, which is understand the chemistry of cosmetics and their uses within the hair and beauty products, and understand the biology related to the hair and beauty sector. So there's going to be 35 marks allocated to this, which is 59% of the exam. And then under the Unit 203, it's going to be allocated 5 marks, which is going to be across understand the use of design in the business, develop the technical skills required to create a hair and beauty image, plan, create and evaluate an image for business use. So that's going to contribute to 88% of the overall test. The extended response question is going to have 12 marks, and it contributes to 20% of the overall exam. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into this exam guide for you. And I hope, if you haven't already seen it, if you go into 3038, if you go into documents, level 2, and then if you go into assessment, you will find this document in that folder. So I'm going to talk you through this exam guide. We didn't have this last year, but we felt that this year we needed to give our centre slightly more guidance around the areas the exam is going to be covering. So in the first section, it tells you how this exam document is broken down. So part 1 is details of the exam. Part 2 is the content assessed by the exam. Then we go into guidance, and then we go into further information. Details of the exam. This tells you how long the exam is going to be. So for every technical, if it's Key Stage 4 or Key Stage 5, they will be slightly different duration in times. But for the Key Stage 4, it's going to be 2 hours long. There's a link there to tell you exactly when the exam is going to take place. And obviously, we published them for this academic year. We haven't published them yet for the following academic year. So again, this goes through to what I've already been through, that we've got for the total exam, it's 60 marks. There'll be 10 to 12 short answer questions and 1 extended response. This is what I went through a little while ago about recollection, understanding. So we've got 20% of recall knowledge, which is your list, your label, identify, type, command verbs. Demonstrate understanding, which is going to be from your describe, explain, compare, justify. And then 30% is going to be from your extended response question. It goes into booking and taking the exam. Now, this is obviously any exam concessions if you've got any access to assessment learners that need extra time or extra support. It goes into the details there for you. Then we're going to get on to the content of the exam. So we know it's going to cover across Unit 201, 202 and 203. As I say, it goes into each learning outcome and how they are weighted for each learning outcome and how many marks. Then I'm going to go into the type of questions and type of command verbs that could be used. So as I said, our learners did quite well with list, label, identify, but the more recall not the more depth and breadth of knowledge they struggled with. So it goes into a few examples about what we mean by, select, what we mean by summarise. And then we go on to the different questions. So we got the first type of question we had, which this is a recall of knowledge. So it states 2 main responsibilities carried out by a receptionist. So there could be loads of different answers. These answers aren't exhaustive, but obviously what you need to then say to your learner is actually, okay, let's highlight what the command verb is here. The command verb is state. What do we mean by state? State is a bullet point response. The exam question is asking for 2 main responsibilities and it's worth 2 marks. So they could give taking appointments, booking appointments, answering the telephone, selling retail products, stock control, taking messages. There's lots of different responsibilities from a receptionist. And as I say, this list is not exhaustive. Then we go on to a structured response question. Now these are the ones that our learners didn't do quite so well at. So explain how a depilatory product affects the hair and structure. So 1 mark for each of the following to a maximum of 3 marks. So we need to think about how's the effect of breaking the linkages between the polypeptide chains and the cortex. The high alkalinity of the product swells the hair and will dissolve the hair. So we're telling them what it is and what it does. So we're telling them the whys. Also, our learners didn't do quite so well where we had a question that had a part A and a part B. The part B here is identify 2 possible negative effects of a depilatory product. Again, some of our learners didn't understand the terminology of a negative effect. So these are the types of things we need to be talking to our learners, the type of language that we need to be using with our learners to make sure that they're fully prepared for these knowledge tests. Then we're going to go on to an extended response. So we're giving the learner an example question, a case study approach. So discuss a variety of factors to consider when designing and developing a website for a chain of hair salons. Now this is worth 12 marks and we're asking them to discuss. So we need to make sure they understand what the command verb discuss means. As I say, last year our learners didn't do quite so well with the extended response question. And I think this is where we've got to give them some more structure around supporting them with how they write against an extended response question. So what we've done here is we've given you some indicative content. So key headings that you can share with your learners and to help them prepare for a case study extended response question. So the sort of indicative content we're giving you here is that, okay, under this you've got to write something about resource factors, people with specialist skills in creating website, the size of the site, the cost of development, timescales, specialised products and equipment, location in terms of search engine and position. Then you've got another heading here that they need to consider, economic factors. Then the purpose and the use of the website, the ethical and social factors, your legal requirements, technological developments linked to other businesses. So you can print these off and give your learners this question as an extended response. Give them the indicative content to help them start to think about how they structure their responses. And then what we've given you here then is an example of a response from a lower level learner that would actually get 1 to 4 marks. So they've obviously gone into a little bit of detail, but not enough. They haven't hit each of those indicative content type headings. Then we've given you an example of a middle of the road learner that has gone into a little bit more depth and breadth of knowledge. Their response covers a good range of the factors, but hasn't gone into enough. So this learner would get anything between 5 to 8 marks. So we've given you an example of a middle throat learner. Then we've given you an example of how a slightly more able learner could actually strive to get 9 to 12 marks, and the sort of response that our markers would be looking for. Okay, then we're going to go further on down the document. And again, it goes into a bit of hints and tips about exam technique, what you need to be thinking about with your learners before the exams, how you're going to prepare them, how at the start of the exam session you're going to try and support them to make sure they read those questions through thoroughly. Like reading all the questions through first and starting on the questions that they find easiest first. Lots of centres now are getting their learners to start with the extended response first because it's a case study approach. It tells them the story. It puts that learner at ease, rather than maybe starting off with a question which is around health and safety or something like that, which could stump them at the beginning. To get them to read it through quite carefully first, making sure they see which questions are worth the most marks. Then it goes into a few hints and tips around answering the questions, the short answer questions, and then the same for answering an extended response. So our chief examiners have gone into an awful lot of detail here to help support you, support your learners. So please have a look at those. If you can't find them, just drop me an email and I will send you the link to them. Okay, we'll go back to the presentation now. So we're going to now start to think about the synoptic assignment. The synoptic assignment is all about a demonstration of bringing together the skills and knowledge. So as part of a synoptic assignment, it isn't just so practical. We can see from it inferred knowledge that they have those skills. They have to go off and research. They have to go off and research a particular era. And as you would see now, you would have got the synoptic assignment for February that you will release to your learners in February. And this one this year is on the Grecian times. So they have to go off and research the Grecian times. Please make sure that when you check that research that they have done the Grecian times and they haven't gone on the tangent and actually gone to a different era, or they haven't understood what you mean by the Grecian times. They have to be able to reflect and evaluate on their performance. And this is something our learners have found quite difficult across the board this year, about thinking, okay, what was my skills like? How could I improve it? We find it very difficult at our age to be able to reflect and evaluate. But a 14-year-old finds it really challenging. So these are the sort of things you need to be able to support your learners with. Having a look at their work and thinking, okay, how could I improve that? Looking at the balance of that hairstyle, looking at the makeup of what they've done and how they could improve it. There's a moderation approach to the synoptic assignment. As I say, it is a desk-based moderation activity for Key Stage 4. We feel that the moderation approach is a much fairer approach because you know what's happening in your centre, but you don't know what's happening nationally. And our moderators are trained up now to know what's happening nationally and what is the national standard. You have that 12-week window where you can then start to think about assessing your learners from the 5th of February, but the window closes on the 18th of May. Once that window closes on the 18th of May, it closes for that academic year and will not reopen again until the following academic year. It's not a race. Make sure that you don't want to probably think about the first part of the window You want to make sure your learners have had the maximum teaching time to be the best they can possibly be to be able to showcase their skills. But also, I wouldn't be looking at the last 2 weeks of the window, because if one of your learners goes off sick, once that window closes on the 18th of May, it closes for that academic year. It contributes to 60% of the overall grade. There is a resit opportunity, but it won't be until the next academic year. Okay, so we've changed our assessment objectives this year. We did have 8 assessment objectives last year, but there was an awful lot of crossover of skills and knowledge across those 8 assessment objectives. And we decided from your feedback this year that we'll reduce it down to 5 assessment objectives. So AO1 is again about recall of knowledge. It's about their health and safety, how their posture, their deportment, and how they're presenting themselves. And this is around about 15%. But it's also about their research. Don't forget, for the Synoptic Assignment, they have their research activity, they have their practical, and then they have the evaluation afterwards. So across this outcome, it is 15%. So that will become from their performance, from task 1, which is their research element, and then a little bit from task 3 as well, which is their evaluation. Your AO2 is your understanding of the concepts. And again, this comes across from your 3 tasks that those learners have to do. It's weighted slightly heavier at 20%. Your application or your practical technical skills is from your practical activity, from your task 2, and it is weighted at 20%. AO4 is about how they're bringing it all together in the most coherent way, and that is weighted at 30%. And AO5 is that learner that's got that attention to detail, that's looking for that perfection, the eye for detail, and is really producing good standard of work. So in your Synoptic Assignment pack, which you should all have access to, you can get the password from Walled Garden. In the brief, it tells you when you can release this to your learners. Now, if you're not thinking about doing the practical Synoptic Assignment until maybe after the Easter term in April, then you would submit it to your learners 4 weeks beforehand. So what you could do is, before they go off on their Easter break, that you could actually tell them, okay, this is what I want you to research over your holidays. But it is only the assignment brief that you can release to them 4 weeks before. They actually then get task 1 and task 2 on the day. During these 4 weeks, learners can use the internet, books, and other materials to do their research. The information they collect can be stored on a pen drive or a computer or in notebooks. Once they've completed the 4 weeks of research, they have then to start the Synoptic task. During supervised sessions, they would start to collate their research into task 1. And they can then have access, they can't have access to the internet, but they can use their research that is stored on a pen drive or on their computer or class notes and textbooks to carry out the task 1, task 2, and task 3. The approximate pass grade boundaries for the Synoptic Assignment is around about 42%. The minimum of points available for each assessment is graded as listed in the table below. A range of points between a pass, merit and distinction boundaries will be accessible to the candidates. As I say, our principal moderator is going to be doing a webinar on best practice about marking against a Synoptic Assignment. So as soon as I have those dates, I will share those dates with you. We also have a technical and moderation support team. This technical moderation support team is there and they're there from Monday to Friday to support you around your generic queries. If you've got any technical queries, please come through to myself or through to Alison. We can support you on with any technical questions. But if it is to find where's the right documents, your general queries about technical qualifications, exam timetables, moderation timelines, then that is what our technical moderation support team are there for, to support you. So you can either email them or you can phone them on their direct line number. We haven't had any questions coming up at the moment, so we're just going to check to see if there's any questions, but I don't think there's any that's come up at the moment. So we will finish the webinar now. If you do have any questions or you need further clarification, what I will do now is I will send you out my presentation. It will take a few days to download the recording of it, but as soon as I have the recording of the webinar, then I will send you the webinar recording as well, so you can use it for standardisation activities within your centre as well. So I'd just like to thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I'd like to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.